Hey guys, this is IX with RolloutReviews doing another casual DX Kamen Rider Ghost unboxing. I'm really excited for this one. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. This is the DX Megaloador. This is the henshin device for the third Kamen Rider in Kamen Rider Ghost, Necrom. And it's got sort of an eyedropper theme. The theme for the series is eyes, of course. We had sunglasses before, so why not an eyedropper? From the start, the bad guys, the Ganma, have had some eye drop themes going on with the way they summon the monsters of the week, so it's not too far off from what we've seen in the series before. And since this guy is affiliated with the Ganma themselves, he's sort of an evil rider at this point. He has the eye drop theme as well. The name is a little weird. It's the Megaloador, and it's kind of a forced pun as far as I understand. Uro means moisten, or like to clear up. So the eye drop theme fits with that. Mega is a pun in of itself. Mega, of course, means like super, but mega also means eyes in Japanese. So it can be taken to sound a little bit like Mega Uloader. If you throw a U in there, it kind of sounds like Megaloador, but Megaloador sort of means moistened eyes, or eye moistener, sort of. So there's that. Little bit weird. Bear with me. I think this thing is really cool, and the sounds it has are so cool. It comes with the Necrom icon, but up here it has the Sanzo Damashi and the Grim Damashi, which are Necrom's two forms, his two alternate forms. A little bit of false advertising, because these icons do not come in this set. They come in another set, which we'll be taking a look at a little bit later. But there you have the henshin device itself. There is Necrom. His helmet design's a little weird. It kind of has like a mono eye, has the iris underneath, sort of like a scuba mask or something. Sort of weird, but I really like it. He's got like these tubes running along his arms and things. Very cool. I love this guy, and he's super cool in the show as well. So without further ado, let's get to opening this up. Probably going to bring the camera down as usual once I have this opened. So I'll get to that when I get to that, of course. So set the box off to the side, get this centered, and I'll run around and bring the camera down. There we go. So it's a little bit of a smaller device than the Ghost Driver, of course. I like to compare this sort of to the Brake Gunner from last year, which was Machine Chaser's transformation device, which was much smaller, had much less compatibility than the Drive Driver, and wasn't like a full-on belt. It was a gun that he used to transform. This is sort of a brace. It goes on his arm. A lot of people are comparing Necrom to Ben 10, given his color scheme and the fact that he uses a wrist device and that he has like a time limit to his transformation. Kind of funny in that way. But here we go. Inside you have the brace itself, the Necrom icon, which looks very different than your average icon, and we'll do some comparisons here in a second. And then you have the straps for your wrist here in the side, kind of bent around the corner, so hopefully it's not too difficult to bend that back into shape. Let's actually open these up first just to see. Is this sealed? No. I should know better. these toys usually don't seal up anything. But yeah, here are the straps. They are sort of linked together in here. Yeah, they're pretty big. I have pretty thin wrists myself. I never doubted that I wouldn't be able to wear this. I never doubted that I would be able to wear this, but yeah, they seem pretty big. You should be able to, any adult should be able to wear this regardless, but I suppose we will find out. Here's the device itself, and it is pretty big, and does look a little unwieldy on the arm in the show, but in person it's much smaller than I expected it to be, so that's good. There is the battery compartment. As usual, I will open this up and do a cut, get the batteries inside there, and we'll figure everything out, but I do want to take a look at the Eyecon here first. So, let's get this out. Let's actually set this off to the side as I take a look at this. So here is the Necrom Eyecon. It's surprisingly small, actually. Right off the bat, here is a comparison with a standard Eyecon. It is about the same size, I suppose, but it's much thinner. Much thinner, and just feels a little bit smaller in the hand. It is a little bit heavier than a normal Eyecon, but for one reason or another, it doesn't seem quite as heavy as the Boost Eyecon, despite having a similar thing going on with sound effects. There's the top. It's got an M, and it says Necrom there. Sort of a strange shape as well. It's like an inverted T instead of just the rectangle like all of these. This is very obviously like an artificial, more technically themed Eyecon than the normal ones, of course. Giant iris there. Has sort of the horn of Necrom molded into the top here. Button on that side, speaker on this side, and then it has a pull tab here, and that should activate the electronics. So let's take a look at the 3 sounds this has on its own before we put batteries in the main event and take a look at everything else. So, stand by. Stand by. Love that. Love that so much. Loading. Loading. Destroy! I love the voice actor who does the voice for this. At first listen, I suppose, I thought it sounded a little bit like one of my favorite voice actors, Steve Bloom, but upon further research, it's actually an American voice actor who does a lot of work in Japan. I think he actually lives in Japan. His name is Peter Von Gom. He's got a really, really great voice. He does a lot of Japanese commercials, despite, being born and I think raised in America. But yeah, he's got a great voice, and stand by. Just sounds so good. It does remind me a little bit of like the Fies gears, the Fies drivers from, of course, Kamen Rider Fies. Just a very, very kind of deep and soothing voice. Absolutely love it. So anyway, before I ramble on and gush even more, I am going to open this up, get the batteries inside, and we will move along. But before moving on to the Megaloador itself, the Necrom Eyecon does have some sounds specifically for the Ghost Driver. Now, in the show, Necrom beats Kamen Rider Spectre, and then he takes his own Eyecon and puts it into Spectre's driver, which puts the Necrom Parka on Spectre and puts Spectre under the control of the bad guys. So that's no good. But the toys actually do sort of do a similar thing. So that, I think, is the proper sound here. Put it in. Now, When you put the Eyecon in, it starts making this noise. This is not the driver making this noise, that's the Eyecon itself. And it actually makes the standby sound before you close the lid here. So it's saying Bachirimiya, which of course is very similar to Bachirimina or Bachirimiro. It sort of means the same thing, although it's kind of, as I understand, more upper class, more formal, in almost like a demeaning way, like I'm better than you, kind of. But basically meaning, watch this, or like, would you please watch, or something like that. So, after it does that for a little bit, of course, it goes on for a little while until stopping, but... And that goes on for a little bit longer after these sounds. Now, the driver itself says Kaigan. Everything else is the Eyecon itself. There is a pin combination programmed into the belt for this Eyecon that basically just says Kaigan and then does nothing but silence and flashing lights, and that's what this activates it. I believe it says, here we go, Kakuko, which we're pretty used to by now, and then it says Notori Ghosto. Notori means like hijack or take over. So he's taking over his mind, I suppose, and controlling him to use against Kamen Rider Ghost. I think the attack sounds are also a little bit different for this because, of course, it's the Eyecon itself making those sounds and not the driver. So they are not the sounds we're used to hearing from the driver itself. So... So yeah, it's a much different sound. It has kind of a liquidy sound to it, which makes sense given Necrom's theme. It is weird to me that that light kind of flashes much longer after the sounds themselves. Also worth noting, the Necrom Eyecon does not light up like the boost Eyecon, so you don't have that functionality, but it has a lot more sounds programmed into it than the boost Eyecon, and honestly, I prefer that. And then, of course, there is the Omedama. The face also does not switch, very similar to the boost Eyecon, but very much unlike all the other Eyecons, so it doesn't really matter if I'm on the right face here. I guess it doesn't have an Omedama then. I thought it did. If it does and I'm just doing something wrong, I apologize. But yeah, I thought it did. I don't know. I could have sworn I heard that, but maybe I am mistaken. But there is the functionality in the Ghost Driver. Stand by. Now, let's move on to the Megaloador itself. So, I've got the batteries in there, but before I take it off and demonstrate it, and of course turn it on, I did sort of want to show it off on my arm, because, like I said, it's a wrist changer device, and I thought I'd put it on, see what the experience was like, and relay that to you. I think it's super weird. It goes on your left arm so that you can activate and use everything with your right hand. Makes sense. In theory, it would be easier to put it on my left arm because I am right-handed, but regardless, I found it very, very difficult to get this strap on here especially. It was just slipping around all over the place. I didn't have that simple of a time to get it on there tight enough to actually be secure, because this is a pretty heavy thing and it's on your arm, so if you swing it around and you don't have it tight enough, it could come undone, or at least just shift around more than I'd want it to. Beyond that, I think the sizing for the straps is really weird. As I said earlier, I have pretty thin wrists. The thing is, on this strap here, it's on the first little loop here, the first setting. This is as large as it can go. But then the second one has all of this room here. And it's like, who has wrists that are this thin up here, but like gigantic down here? It seems weird to me. So in hindsight, I'm not sure if, you know, an average size adult, every average size adult at least, would be able to wear this. I think it should be okay, but that's got me questioning things, because it is super weird. I cannot fathom why this one would be so much smaller by comparison to this one. But anyway, let me take this off here so that it is much easier to demonstrate. As you can see, like I said, this one is just way longer than this one. It does have some numbers here on the inside of the straps, and you can use the instructions to as a guide rather, and it'll tell you how to put this on exactly and how to put these straps on exactly. So that's not too much of a problem. Also, one really weird thing when I was just inspecting these straps, one of the nubs that locks these straps in place has a little smear of gold paint on it. I don't know if you can see that on camera. There is no gold on this entire thing at all. So I have no idea what's going on there, but I don't want to think about it too much. Anyway, I have two AAA batteries in there, pretty much par for the course. For a smaller transformation device like this. The off and on switch is on the side here, which would put it facing towards you when it's on your arm, on your left arm at least. So that is pretty convenient. Of course, here I have the cover. Let me screw that on, and then we will get started. So put that on there like that, and screw that in. And then turn it on. Let me, I think lights will flash when I turn it on, so let me make sure. There we go. So you get kind of a very technical confirmation there, kind of blinks around here on the top there. Very cool. It's got LEDs, I think, on either side, maybe, of this. Let me turn it on again to make sure. No, it actually just has one LED towards the back that lights up this entire screen, which is supposed to look kind of like a ripple in water, I suppose. And it gets the job done, and then you have kind of the dropper device up here, which I think also has at least one LED, maybe two, up in the top there. So it does definitely have lights in it, as well as sounds, unlike, you know, things like the Spectre weapon. So let's see what pressing some of these buttons does. It is on, and by pressing this button here in this configuration, it tells me that's bad. Pressing this does not do anything at all. This actually has Necrom's eye symbol. Ghost has kind of a standard eye symbol. Spectre has one with like two little wispy things on top, and Necrom's does look a little bit different in its own right as well. Flipping this up like this does nothing at all. Of course, and I didn't show this off, I apologize, when this is on your arm, it is a little bit ridiculous. But as I said earlier, it is much smaller than I expected it to, and waving it around on my arm, it's a little bit wobbly, but it's not too heavy, I don't think, to be completely unwieldy. So that is pretty good. But when you flip it up like this, of course, that's kind of ridiculous. It extends off your arm like 3 or 4 inches, so yeah, that could be seen as a problem to some people. Anyway, let's initiate transformation. Let's see, what setting is this on?
Loading.
I think that's where it's supposed to be. Stand by. All right, and then I think you put it in like this.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Love that so much. The user of the Necrom brace at the moment is Alan, Prince of the Ganma. So that makes sense. Yes, sir. And has this nice little standby. All right, and then when you flip this up, no confirmation there, no electronics in that mechanism when you flip it up. Then you press this button on the side. It says loading, of course, the icon itself. And then the Megaloador has a different standby sound. And this here is lighting up. This is not lighting up yet. However, when we press the top here, very, very cool. So, as you can see, this whole thing kind of lights up to make it look like there's a drop coming from here, landing in there, and then circling around. Very, very cool effect. I really like the way that was done with the multiple LEDs. The sounds themselves are really, really cool. Again, I just love the voice in this thing so much. So, when you press the button there, fortunately most of this is in English. As I said, it's an American voice actor, so he does English pretty well, and that's pretty good. But it does have a couple Japanese phrases that I'd like to go over. Tengan is the main one, which basically means like clarity or eye drops or clairvoyance, sort of. It can mean a number of things, which all make sense in a variety of different ways, I suppose. But that is basically the equivalent to Ghost Inspector's Kaigan, Tengan. Clairvoyance comes from French, and I think it means clear vision. So in a roundabout way, it makes sense with eyes in that sense. So there is that. Very, very cool. He does have an attack here, so I think you press this again, which gives you the destroy sound. So let's do that. That is very satisfying, by the way, pressing that button, and it goes through and presses the button on the icon itself. Really like that. Then you have a third standby. Lots of standbys in this. That lights up. Is this lighting up? I think actually just this section is lighting up here. The LED in the tip there, and not the LED there. Then when you press the button, it kind of transfers over to here. So that's very, very cool. Again, it has a very liquidy sound to it, like it did in the Ghost Driver. So then, of course, Dai Tengan is like grand clairvoyance or grand clarity, grand eye drop, and then Omega Ruode. Mega, again, eyes, but Omega, super attack, Urode, moisten. So like mega, omega moistening or something, which is silly when you phrase it that way, but sounds pretty cool as Omega Ruode. But in the sense, it also sounds a little bit like mega load, omega load, which I guess is kind of the pun this whole thing is going for. Let's see what doing that again does.
Stand by.
So, because those sounds are offered by the icon itself, it does not say destroy twice, but the Megaloador does think that it's going into attack mode once again, despite the icon itself saying stand by. And it does the same thing over again. So there is that. Pulling that out makes pretty much the same sound that the Ghost Driver makes. I do want to do Necrom's transformation one more time, so... should be like that.
Sir.
And then you flip it like that. I do really like this sound. Let's get a good look at the lights themselves. So again, this is lighting up here. Press this.
Tengan, Necrom, Megaloador.
Megaloador, or Megaloador, which of course we've gone over what that means. Now it does say one more phrase in there, and it is in English, but it's very difficult to hear. It says Crash Invader. Now I think the transcript for the episodes, the script that they release with every new episode every week, says that the device says Crush the Invader, but I am very distinctly hearing Crash Invader, and that makes a whole lot more sense to me, because the Ganma are the invaders. So for Necrom to be crushing the invader is sort of ironic and doesn't make sense. The phrase Crash Invader makes a whole lot more sense to me because he is an invader and he is crashing in. But that is just about it for this set. Now, the way this reads icons is a little bit different than the Ghost driver. It's not nearly as complex and does not have nearly as many options. If you look at the bottom here, it has the pins like usual that activate in the Ghost driver, but it also has these additional little pins here and here that are not present on the bottom of a normal icon. Now, all of the icons that are compatible with this, which are the Necrom icon, the Grim icon, and the Sanzo icon, have these little pins here. I think, of course, Necrom here has a pin on both sides, here and here. Grim has just a pin on one side, and Sanzo has just a pin on the other side, and they activate little buttons within here. Very difficult to see. I wish I would have brought a flashlight or something, but there are little buttons here and here that, when pressed in different positions, activate different sounds. Unfortunately, that means those are the only three icons that provide different sounds, excuse me, in this driver. So, if you put an icon that doesn't have those additional pins at the bottom, you get this. Nothing. No confirmation sound, because the confirmation sound is activated by those little pins there. I didn't even show that. There you go. And then, of course, you flip it around like that, press the button, it reads it. So it just says Ghost. Very kind of standard sound. Now, that's great for this icon. It's also great for the boost icon. But say you put something like the Spectre icon in there. It still just says Ghost. So it doesn't matter what icon you put in. If it isn't Necrom, Grim, or Sanzo, it'll just say Ghost. But I would have liked at least Spectre's icons to have a different sound. I don't know how they would have been able to do it, but if it just had one more sound, if there was one thing that was slightly different about all of Spectre's icons that allowed this device to say Spectre for all of the blue irised icons, I would absolutely love that. As is, that aspect is a little disappointing. And it also means that this is about it for functionality for this thing. We'll take a look at Grim and Sanzo in another video, but after that, this device doesn't do anything, and I think that is the biggest letdown. If Necrom does get a new upgrade sometime in the future, it'll have to be with a very fancy icon that has many of its own sounds, sort of like this, and provides all of those sounds along with the Mega Uloader by itself. But, yeah, aside from that pretty big downside, I love this thing. I really like the crazy theming behind it. I'm a sucker for things that are so ridiculously stupid that they're awesome, and this is definitely that. I think the lights in this section here and in the eyedropper itself are both very, very cool. Love the sound. Seriously, Peter Von Gom, the Necrom icon voice, the MVP of all of the ghost sounds so far, at least.
Stand by.
Love that so much. Stand by. So, this is a very, very cool thing. I can definitely recommend it, especially considering if you're not a huge fan of collecting the entire toy line for Ghost and are just a big fan of Necrom. If nothing else, you can pretty much get all of the functionality possible out of this by buying two things. This and the Grim Sanzo Himiko set, because the Himiko icon gives you that ghost sound. So if you're a fan of Necrom, I can definitely recommend it, but don't expect too much outside of that if you have all of the other ghost toys from the rest of the line. But that is it. I love this thing, and that is about it. Let me say that's about it one more time. That's about it. And this is IX Roll at IX, signing off.